The sun shone brightly on the bustling city street, casting a warm glow on the storefronts that lined both sides. Outside one busy shop, people hurried past, clutching bags filled with groceries and gifts. Laughter and chatter filled the air as families enjoyed their day out, while others rushed to finish their errands before the weekend arrived. The chatter of excited children mingled with the sounds of nearby traffic, creating a lively tapestry of urban life. In front of the store stood a man who seemed out of place amid the vibrant scene. His clothes were worn and tattered, telling stories of hardship and long days spent on the street. The fabric hung loosely from his frame, and his unkempt beard and tangled hair suggested he had not had a proper grooming in quite some time. He sat on the curb with his head bowed, appearing lost in thought as he observed the world around him. Shoppers glanced at him, some shooting quick looks of pity while others quickly turned away. It was easy for passers-by to make assumptions about who he was based solely on his appearance. A few people dropped coins into an old hat he had placed in front of him, a small gesture that did little to ease the isolation he felt in that moment. As the afternoon wore on, more customers entered and exited the store, oblivious to the man sitting just outside its doors. For many, their minds were occupied with what they needed to buy or where they would go next. However, a few individuals paused long enough to notice him. An elderly woman shook her head sadly, a young couple whispered softly about how they wished they could help but felt unsure how to approach him. Suddenly, the scene changed when the store manager stepped outside. Dressed sharply in a crisp uniform, he approached the man with an air of authority that made heads turn. It was clear he had little patience for what he saw as a disruption to his business. The atmosphere shifted as tension built. Shoppers began to wonder what was about to unfold. With each passing second, it became apparent that something significant was about to happen, a moment that would challenge perceptions and change everything for this man sitting quietly at the curb. The man sitting on the curb presented a stark contrast to the vibrant scene around him. His appearance was that of someone who had seen better days. His clothes were frayed and faded, hinting at many nights spent sleeping outdoors. The oversized jacket he wore was a dull shade of gray, stained in places and showing signs of wear, as if it had been his only companion through the harshness of life on the streets. Beneath it, a simple t-shirt clung loosely, revealing sun-kissed skin that suggested he had spent countless hours exposed to the elements. His face bore the marks of time and struggle. Deep lines etched into his forehead and around his eyes told stories of both sorrow and resilience. His unkempt beard framed a mouth that seemed to rarely smile, further emphasizing his somber presence. As he sat there with his head bowed, one could almost feel the weight of his experiences pressing down on him. Around him, curious glances flitted from shopper to shopper. Some people looked on with fleeting sympathy, their thoughts likely filled with fleeting judgments about why he was there or how he ended up in this situation. Others hurried past with eyes straight ahead, purposefully avoiding making any connection. It was clear that many were unsure how to react to this man. A mix of pity, confusion, and discomfort floated in the air like an unspoken cloud. Occasionally, someone approached him, their expressions varying from concern to straightforward indifference. A few coins were tossed into the battered hat resting in front of him, a small gesture that did little to bridge the chasm of isolation he felt. Each clink of metal hitting fabric echoed a reminder of how alone he was in that moment. Yet, as he looked up briefly, something shifted in his eyes. There was a flicker of hope mingled with weariness, a silent plea for understanding that went unnoticed by most. Despite how others perceived him, beneath that weathered exterior lay a man shaped by experiences far beyond what anyone could see at first glance. With the store manager now advancing toward him, the atmosphere became charged with anticipation. Onlookers sensed that something pivotal was about to unfold, something that would force them to confront their own assumptions about this man sitting quietly at the curb. As the store manager strode toward the man on the curb, a heavy silence fell over the crowd. His crisp uniform stood in stark contrast to the ragged appearance of the man he approached, and his polished shoes clicked sharply against the concrete. The look on his face was one of irritation mixed with determination, as if he had made up his mind to restore order in front of his store. "Hey! You can't be sitting here," he said, raising his voice just enough to command attention. The words cut through the air like a knife, and many shoppers paused to witness the unfolding drama. The man looked up slowly, surprise and confusion flickering across his features. He seemed to shrink further into himself, as if trying to disappear into the ground beneath him. "This is a family shopping area," the manager continued, crossing his arms. "We don't want people like you loitering here. It drives away customers." His tone dripped with disdain, and it was apparent that he saw the homeless-looking man more as an inconvenience than a fellow human being. A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging glances that conveyed their disapproval of the manager's harshness. The man attempted to respond but stumbled over his words, frustration and embarrassment evident in his trembling voice. I'm not bothering anyone," he muttered softly, but it was drowned out by the manager's raised voice. "I don't want to hear excuses. Either you move along or I'll have to call someone," the manager snapped back. His demeanor exuded authority, yet it lacked any trace of compassion. In that moment, he failed to see beyond the man's disheveled appearance, a perspective that many others who had paused were beginning to contemplate. An elderly woman watched from a distance, her heart sank at how cruelly the man was being treated. A young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, questioning why they were treating someone so unkindly. As whispers spread among onlookers about what was happening, a wave of discomfort washed over them all. The confrontation escalated quickly, making it clear that this moment was not just about a man sitting on a curb but rather about understanding and empathy in a world too quick to judge based on appearances alone. As tension thickened in the air, everyone waited for what would happen next, hoping for a resolution that might bring humanity back into focus amidst this harsh exchange. As the confrontation escalated, the atmosphere around the store shifted dramatically. Shoppers who had previously been absorbed in their own conversations now found themselves drawn into a moment that felt deeply uncomfortable. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd as they witnessed the store manager's harsh words toward the man on the curb. Several onlookers exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions reflecting a mix of concern and disbelief. An elderly woman shook her head slowly, her face lined with worry. "That's no way to treat someone," she whispered to her companion, who nodded in agreement but remained silent, unsure of how to intervene. A young couple stood nearby, their hands full of shopping bags, looking on with frowns etched across their faces. The woman clutched her partner's arm tightly, visibly unsettled by the situation. "What if that were my dad?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Her partner squeezed her hand gently, sharing her unease but feeling powerless to change what was happening. Children watched with wide eyes, absorbing the tension in the air. A little boy tugged at his mother's sleeve and asked, "Why is he yelling at that man?" His innocent question pierced through the heavy atmosphere and forced some adults to confront their own discomfort with the scene unfolding before them. A few brave souls stepped forward, contemplating whether to speak up or intervene in some way. One man cleared his throat and took a step toward the confrontation but hesitated, unsure if he should involve himself in what felt like an escalating conflict. "Maybe we should do something," he suggested cautiously to those around him, but many remained frozen in place, caught between wanting to help and fearing potential backlash from the manager. As whispers spread among bystanders about what was happening, more people began to gather. The crowd grew larger but not necessarily more united. Some expressed empathy for the homeless-looking man while others sided with the manager's desire for order. It was a moment pregnant with tension, one that exposed not only the harsh treatment of an individual but also revealed a community grappling with its own values of compassion and judgment. With each passing second, it became clearer that this moment would linger in the minds of those present long after it was over, an opportunity for growth and understanding amidst a world too often quick to judge without knowing someone's story. Just as the tension reached its peak, a voice broke through the murmur of confusion from the crowd. "Wait," shouted a middle-aged man, stepping forward with purpose. His demeanor was urgent, and attention turned to him as he continued. "That's not just any man, that's Joe Collins." The name hung in the air for a moment, puzzling many who had gathered. The man on the curb looked up with eyes wide, a mix of recognition and embarrassment crossing his features. He hadn't wanted to draw attention to himself, yet here he was, suddenly thrust back into a spotlight he had long tried to escape. "Joe served 2 tours in Iraq," the middle-aged man explained, his voice steady and full of respect. He was awarded a Silver Star for bravery and saved countless lives during his time as a medic. He paused briefly, visibly moved by his memories. Now look at him, reduced to this. Murmurs spread quickly through the crowd, their perception shifting as they processed the unexpected revelation of Joe's past. Faces that had previously displayed pity or disdain transformed into expressions of empathy and shame as they began to understand who he truly was. The idea that such a decorated veteran could find himself in such circumstances struck many like a cold wave. "You all see him," the man insisted passionately, gesturing toward Joe. "But do you really know him? Do you know what he's faced? The battles don't stop when they come home." He continued to explain how many veterans struggle with reintegration after service, citing mental health challenges and societal neglect. As the realization settled over the audience, shifted glances were exchanged, now filled with understanding rather than judgment. Some people stepped closer, their expressions softening as they offered Joe kind words or small gestures of support. One young woman knelt beside him and softly asked if he needed food or water. The store manager stood frozen for a moment, his authoritarian posture sagging under the weight of newfound awareness. The tension transformed. It became not only about Joe's experience but also about the community's responsibility to recognize those in need, especially those who have given so much. In that crucial moment, perceptions changed, revealing that beneath appearances often lies an untold story, a reminder of sacrifice and humanity's capacity for compassion amidst unfair judgment. In the moments following the revelation of Joe Collins's identity, a wave of compassion swept through the crowd. People who had once stood silently now began to take action, motivated by a newfound understanding of Joe's struggles. The atmosphere shifted from one of judgment to a collective resolve to support him. Several veterans in the crowd stepped forward, their own experiences echoing Joe's. They offered words of encouragement and solidarity, reminding him he was not alone. One man, wearing a faded military cap, approached Joe with tears in his eyes, saying, "You fought for us, now let us fight for you." He placed a firm hand on Joe's shoulder while others nodded in agreement, creating an impromptu circle of support around him. Local organizations that focused on veteran affairs quickly took notice of the unfolding scene through social media posts shared by witnesses. Before long, representatives from nearby shelters and charities arrived with resources and support. They handed out pamphlets detailing services available to veterans, including mental health support, housing assistance, and job training programs. A local cafe even offered to provide meals for Joe and other homeless veterans in the area, emphasizing their commitment to giving back to those who had served the country. The owner spoke passionately about wanting to create a safe space for veterans and promised that no one would go hungry as long as they had the means to help. The earlier sense of shame felt by many in the crowd transformed into a determination to make amends. Shoppers began contributing money not just to Joe but also to local organizations dedicated to helping homeless veterans. As donations flowed in, people expressed their regret for their previous judgments and vowed to become more aware of the struggles faced by those living on the streets. The elderly woman who had initially disapproved of the manager's treatment spoke up again, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "Let's make this a turning point," she urged. "We need to do better, treat everyone with respect and dignity." As conversation sparked among community members about how they could collectively support veterans like Joe, a sense of unity emerged. This event became a catalyst for change within the community, serving as a reminder that even a small act of kindness can lead to profound transformations in understanding and compassion. With hope rekindled in their hearts, those present left with a commitment not only to help Joe but also to foster an inclusive environment for all who had served their country. As the community rallied around Joe Collins, a profound lesson emerged from the events that had unfolded. It became clear that understanding and compassion are essential in a world often quick to judge based on appearances alone. The initial reactions of the crowd reflected a common tendency to make snap judgments, perhaps driven by fear, discomfort, or simply a lack of awareness about the lives of others. Many people present realized they had allowed their perceptions to be clouded by Joe's worn clothes and disheveled appearance, failing to see the person beneath those layers. Joe was not just a homeless man, he was a decorated veteran who had bravely served his country. With this understanding came the realization that everyone has a story, often filled with challenges and hardships that remain unseen at first glance. The transformation in the crowd highlighted how easy it can be to overlook the humanity in others, especially those who may not fit societal norms or expectations. It served as a reminder that each individual carries their own burdens, and compassion is not just about providing help but also about recognizing the dignity of every person, regardless of their circumstances. As conversations continued among community members, many began to share their own experiences with judgment and misunderstanding. Some opened up about times when they felt marginalized or overlooked, realizing how similar feelings could arise from anyone's situation. This exchange fostered deeper connections among those present, sparking discussions about how they could actively work to change their attitudes and behaviors toward others in their daily lives. Local organizations saw this moment as an opportunity to educate the community about the realities faced by veterans and individuals experiencing homelessness. They began planning events aimed at raising awareness, encouraging dialogue, and promoting acts of kindness. Workshops on empathy and understanding were proposed, allowing people to learn how to approach those in need with compassion rather than judgment. Ultimately, the incident became a catalyst for change, not just for Joe but for everyone involved. It reminded them all that true strength lies in understanding and kindness. By choosing compassion over judgment, they could create a more inclusive community where everyone felt valued and supported. In the end, it was not just about helping Joe, it was about building a culture of acceptance that would uplift all members of society, fostering a deeper sense of connection among them all. The incident involving Joe Collins served as a powerful reminder of the impact that understanding and kindness can have in our communities. As the dust settled and life returned to normal outside the busy store, many in the crowd found themselves reflecting on their own attitudes and behaviors. The day began with a moment of conflict but ended with an opportunity for growth, transforming how they viewed not only Joe but also others encountering similar struggles. In the days following the event, conversations about compassion and empathy flourished. Local gatherings were organized where community members shared personal stories, further deepening connections among individuals who might have previously passed by each other without a second thought. This shift in perspective helped foster an environment where people felt more inclined to reach out and offer help to those in need, rather than turning away or making quick judgments based on appearances. Schools began implementing programs to educate children about kindness and acceptance, emphasizing the importance of seeing beyond looks. Lessons focused on empathy encouraged students to consider what others might be going through before forming opinions or making assumptions. The young generation started practicing simple acts of kindness daily, reinforcing a culture of support throughout the community. Additionally, local businesses began collaborating with charities aimed at helping homeless veterans and other marginalized groups. Regular food drives, clothing donations, and fundraising events became common. Store owners recognized their role in creating a welcoming atmosphere where everyone, regardless of their circumstances, was treated with respect. The transformation was tangible, smiles replaced frowns as passers-by acknowledged each other with warmth rather than indifference. Most importantly, this incident ignited a dialogue about mental health awareness among veterans. Community organizations worked tirelessly to provide resources for those who had served, helping them reintegrate into society while ensuring that their sacrifices were acknowledged and honored. As time went on, the story of Joe Collins became more than just an incident, it became a symbol of hope and change within the community. It reminded everyone that we are all interconnected and that a small act of kindness can create ripples of positivity. By embracing compassion over judgment, they laid the foundation for a society that values every individual's story, a commitment that would continue to resonate through future generations. Through understanding one another, they learned to uplift their community together, creating a legacy marked not by appearances but by shared humanity and mutual support.